Hi everyone, and welcome back to Mo Shorts. So today we'll be discussing the evolution of the brain. Right? So the brain is an organ that serves as the center of a nervous system. In all animals, vertebrates and invertebrates, and I believe even plant life, because within all natural things there are self-similarities, such as an atom having a nucleus, to a cell having a nucleus, to the human body having a nucleus, which would be considered the brain, and even our solar system having a nucleus, which would be the sun, and even expanding beyond that, such as Laniakea. Now, after extensive research and a lot of reading, I've come to the conclusion on what is the future of the brain. And actually, one of my favorite references comes from Michio Kaku's novel, The Future of the Mind. And in reference to his theories and many other scientists and philosophers, I've come to my own hypothesis on what is the brain and the mind. Now, according to natural selection, around 200,000 years ago, the Homo sapiens has surpassed other hominids in being who we are today. But in order to figure out where we're going, we need to know where we came from. So we'll bring it back to level 0. So since the story of one mitochondria deciding to eat another mitochondria, we've produced organisms called eukaryotes, which are plant and animal cells. When eukaryotes were able to differentiate temperature, such as hot and cold. This also was a way of life because we needed to produce our own energy, such as ATP. From here, you can think of this as the start of your spinal cord, so like your brain stem, right? All plants and animals have a stem. Then a lot of years passed, we get to level 1. 1 is basically survival of the fittest, your reptilian brain, right? And you can think of this as your cerebellum along the lines of your stem. This is where organisms start to develop skills in order to survive, such as fight or flight, eating, and just learning how to survive within all the craziness that's going on within all our environments, right? This has to do with minimal learning pathways, so we are still trying to increase our feedback loops. But as time progressed, we've gained more, which brought us to level 2, social groups and recognitions. So now we developed the limbic system, where emotions really take place. So like our hippocampus and our amygdala started to develop. Now with this, we learned how to reproduce, increase more complex emotions such as fear and anger. And so now organisms were able to tell who was family and who would be good to them as opposed to a predator coming along. Now, as we increase more feedback loops and pathways, we get to level 3, which would be where most Homo sapiens would be now relative to logic and rationale. So this is like saying, if I cross the street now, I won't get hit by a car. But if I stop in the middle of the street, I'll get hit by a car. As we developed logic, we started strategizing and stimulating the future. And this can be taken in many different accounts, but I believe that's what our brain is meant to do at this stage, where we go through different patterns and we think about different outcomes so that our survival rates are higher. Now, because we're at level 3, we have our brainstem, cerebellum, and then our cerebrum, which consisted of first the limbic system. Now we're at the frontal lobes. The frontal lobes is also called your neocortex. Some people call it the isocortex, or even the neopallium, right? And this has a lot to do with stimulating the future. So we use logic and strategies in order to predict the best possible outcomes of survival. Right now, this is one of my favorite parts of the brain because as we increase our feedback loops and pathways, tissue grows and it expands the brain. So just imagine you strengthening your muscles and tissues. Throughout time, your brain would evolutionary get bigger, right? Which brings me to my hypothesis on level 4, which would be like modulating with your environments and then starting to like controlling like a lot of natural processes such as psychokinesis, also known as telekinesis. Now, some people may think this is like a far stretch, but as you're like in tune with your environment, you start to notice things within like your dreams, within you just thinking about it, or even stimulating certain outcomes that happen to come true. Now, a lot of people think this is crazy because we have a lot of different brain waves that's going on right now that we're not able to focus on developing our actual mind. And like even before language, like just think about it, like species had to communicate with each other without talking. So I can only imagine one organism telling another organism, there's a predator around that corner, don't go around that corner. And this is all with like body language. And then a lot of other things could buttress this because like twins have twin telepathy and cells. Some people only consider this with like plants, but like plants have cellular communication, so they're able to make other organisms survive off of what they're giving. Also for humans it would be known as neurotransmitters. And to piggyback on my claims, the neocortex has higher functions such as sensory perception, motor commands, spatial reasoning, increased conscious thought, maybe even subconscious thought, language, and stimulating the future. Okay? Things that can affect the growth and development of the brain would obviously be genetics, your environment, mutations. Overcoming challenges is a huge way to produce new pathways and increasing neurogenesis, and even learning, because all of this is making your brain work harder and produce more feedback loops, which would evolutionarily grow and develop your brain. But then we have critics that believe level 3 is like the last stage that humans can get to. So then they start proposing things like uploading your consciousness onto a cloud system or even robots. And I'm all for artificial intelligence and machine learning, but I believe that we as a species need to develop our own evolutionary process first before trying to create a new species that would eventually surpass us. So for the sake of human survival, I believe that we need to focus a lot on increasing our brain, like learning a lot more about it. Now for an open discussion, tell me where you think we as a species should be headed towards. Should we focus on growing our brains, or should we just leave it to the next invention such as artificial robots? Thank you again. See you next shorts.